ocean today, and everything from overfishing to climate change and ocean acidification. But one of the most easiest problems facing the state of the ocean with a very easy, tangible solution is marine debris. A lot of our synthetic, non-biodegradable material is ending up in the ocean and having a tremendous impact on marine life and ecosystems around the world.
Plastics are a general term for polymers, which poly, mini, and then mer is the root compound, where essentially you're taking single monomers and chemically bonding them together in a chain, and so you have repeat units going across the structure, and depending on the individual units, they're chosen to give unique properties to the plastic themselves. So say you want flexibility, you want something that's bulletproof, you want something that has a low or high melting point, soft, hard, whatever. You can customize your plastic with these properties based on the base groups that you form, that you hook together through chemical bonds. And so there's, you can picture, these molecules, the monomers are essentially, let's just say they like holding hands. They can hold their own hands, or they can hold the hands of their neighbors, and so that's how they link together. And so you start with monomers, and then you hook them together to make a polymer. So right now, most polymers are made from either natural gas components or just straight petroleum hydrocarbons that have been refined.
When we think about the use of plastic, the popularity of this disposable single-use plastic has really grown exponentially in the last 20 to 30 years. So Jean-Michel, of his healthy age in his 70s, and our parents and grandparents did not have the comforts of the plastic we have today. And so what we have is this disposable single use of plastic bags, baggies, to everything that we think of, we just throw away with really no sense of understanding what happens to that plastic.
So there's a lot of talk about, hope, everybody sort of crosses their fingers. You want to believe that when you throw something away, it turns into something harmless. And you put things in landfills and they kind of are out of sight, out of mind. You bury them with dirt and then put down another layer of trash and bury that one with some more dirt. And but the problem is, as far as plastics go, whether they're in a landfill or out in a gutter or in the middle of the ocean, things don't last forever, but plastics are the gift that keeps on giving, and they last for quite a while. They're tough. That's why we like them. That's why you can have a thin plastic bag that can hold a bunch of groceries, because they're kind of tough and they're lightweight. The other side of the coin is that they don't break down very easily. Well, one of the main routes to decomposition is through UV interaction with the molecules. Ultraviolet from the sun has enough energy to break those bonds. But it's kind of like taking a plastic bag. First you cut it in half and take the two halves and stick them on the ground. And then maybe we take those two halves and stick some of them in the ground and some throw them in the water in the ocean. And then those two pieces maybe break in half. And so you keep chopping them down, but they're still there just because you can't see them. These chains of oligomers, really multiple monomers stuck together, they're still floating around out there. But then eventually you can break it down to its core monomer, the original thing, like polystyrene. It would be the styrene monomer. But then when you get to that point, that turns out to be toxic.
I know that plastic, when it ends in the ocean, as it breaks into smaller pieces from the wind and the waves and the sun, it then mimics food. It gets to a level that looks like plankton, like a gelatinous animal that seabirds feed on, whale sharks feed on, marine mammals feed on. So we now know from scientific studies that over 267 different species of marine life have ingested plastic. And if these birds and dolphins and whales and tuna are ingesting plastic over time, they get a false sense of being full. And many animals we now know literally starve to death because of a tremendous amount of plastic within their gut. So that's a direct concern for sure, is the individual life of animals in the ocean, and we know tens of thousands of marine life suffer from plastic ingestion. We also know big pieces of debris is a navigational hazard. We know it gets stuck in fishing gear. So there's many, many impacts that this debris is having on just the quality of the ocean and the state of the ocean.
What is that?
It looks like a garbage bootleg.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's pretty gross.
Did you just find that just
Yeah,
now?
it was just in the water. I had to pick it up and move it because that's really gross.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it makes me think, where's like the trash can and the trash that goes along with it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think of plastics in the ocean?
I don't think they should be there.
What about what we don't see? What about chemicals? Hundreds and hundreds of chemicals and many, many heavy metals. All of that ends up in the ocean and is affecting anything in the ocean, the food chain. It's absorbed from the plankton all the way up to the fish we catch and bring and put in our plate.
The problem is when you look, you find things. And so if you analyze these food products and these things you've made for these chemicals, you'll find them in all our bodies. Everybody who's in modern society has traces of all these weird man-made chemicals in their body. Small amounts, but you don't really know when you put them all together if they're having a synergistic effect. And then you have bisphenol A, which is something that gives another property to the plastic and makes it more flexible, but it's also has its own problems because it's an endocrine disruptor and it mimics chemicals in your body that signal it to do things. So it fills that site, a signaling site in your body, and then it creates havoc. And so that's why those are such a problem, especially if you're young.
Persistent organic pollutants are also having a tremendous impact on the wildlife. And we filmed killer whales all around the world for a 2-hour special. And we worked with a marine toxicologist in British Columbia. And when he was verbally telling Jean-Michel and I that the young calves of killer whales are not surviving as they used to because they're getting this burden of chemicals from their mother. And their mother is getting these burden of chemicals from the salmon and the food that they're eating. So it's all bioaccumulating up the food chain, and it's these chemicals that are land-based, human-made chemicals.
What do you got there?
Well, a couple pieces of plastic that I found in the water, and then someone left their doggy bag behind. So what good is doggy bag if you don't actually carry it with you to throw it away?
Gross.
At that point, I think your dog crap out of the beach is better because at least it'll decompose and won't kill anything. Lovely. Welcome to Santa Barbara.
And we've been to very populated areas where you would expect to find a lot of plastic and garbage and debris. But we also have been to some very remote areas, places in the heart of the Amazon, some unpopulated islands in the Pacific that has our footprint of plastic and debris. So we know that it's become ubiquitous. It's wherever we look, we find this material in a very destructive way. And we spent about a month in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands on expedition, and we visited about 8 different islands and atolls that make up the northwestern Hawaiian Islands. And these islands are not populated by people, but what we found on every single island we visited was a lot of debris that is coming in from the currents, the Pacific Gyre, which transports a lot of debris over decades, and then given certain oscillations, we get those tides and winds that will move that debris on these remote islands.
As we throw all this stuff in the gutter, all the plastic bits of confetti from Fiesta going down the gutters into the ocean, that stuff's going somewhere. It's not going to just disappear. You may not be able to see it, but it's going to float around, and this trash gyre has to do with ocean currents and wind conditions, and it essentially is a giant whirlpool where all this stuff kind of collects. It's not as dense where you can like walk on it like it's this big island of trash, but it is there at really high concentration.
And also the birds, the albatross, the Laysan and black-footed albatross that will fly hundreds of miles out to sea, even thousands of miles out to sea. And they primarily feed on squid and fish eggs. And more in these convergent current areas, there's more synthetic human material than biomass, live animals. So these birds are swallowing plastic, thinking it's something that's digestible, that it's an actual nutritional food item. And they're bringing these items then back to their rookeries, to their nests, and they're regurgitating the synthetic material to their chicks. A bird is dying right in front of us, a dead lace and albatross where I could pull out everything I have in this bag. So this was inside a bird. Most likely the adult swallowed it, flew hundreds of miles back to its nest, regurgitated it to its chick. And so we have bottle caps, this was one of the lights, I have toothbrushes, and this was a very common item we found. Unfortunately, way too many cigarette lighters. It's just starting a habit. It's keeping a trunk full of reusable bags, always available wherever you go. And we've seen from other states, we've seen from other countries around the world that banning plastic bags does work. It works in saving the community a lot of revenue from not having to clean up the beaches and the waterways of plastic bags. Eventually, people, of course, save a lot of money. And most importantly, we're doing the environment a tremendous favor by removing these plastic bags from our day-to-day lifestyle.
Aggressive solutions are out there, and it's all about priorities. And so where do you want to fund research, and what kind of problems do you want to solve? Plastics can be made in such a way where the decomposition products actually happen. They don't require sun, but to make plastics out of things that bugs can eat is absolutely possible, and it's just a matter of we're using cheap food feedstock to make these plastics, but the party's over, and so all that cheap oil, that's not sustainable on many levels, and it's soon going to be not sustainable on an economic level, and that's probably what's going to stop it.
We need to look at our planet as the capital that has been made available to us. And we need to manage it like you manage a business. If we only live off the interest that is produced by the capital, we can go on forever. But right now we're way beyond that, and we're gobbling up the capital, and everybody knows that we're heading toward bankruptcy. The people running the planet today, their whole focus is short-term. Our focus is long-term, and we need to communicate with those people. And the best way is the heart. Everybody has one.